Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to jump into the markets and all the usual stuff and talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that are happening in the Goodfellas universe. This particular week, we've got a lot of things to announce and a lot of, I'll say we have a special mint coming up for Friday. So stay tuned for that and we'll get through all the information. But first, let's check in with Alex. What's going on, buddy?
Hey man, everything is good. Looking forward to Friday, of course. This may be a surprise to the listeners because obviously we've been announcing to have the mint on Sunday on the 21st, but we are aware of the fact that Sundays are not the best days for many people. You know, we always post these little tweets telling people to touch grass and unplug on Sunday, spend some time with your loved ones, and then we obviously do not want to glue people in front of their screens and have the mint. So we decided to have the mint on Friday 19 during Spaces. This is actually always pretty cool because we can discuss the art together. We get like firsthand reactions from people, and looking forward to that drop. But before we talk about all the NFT related stuff, let's jump a little bit into the markets. And the week just started. We've been saying on Spaces and on podcasts that people have expected September to be a little rough, to lose momentum. September has been bad historically for crypto. People expected Bitcoin to go below 100,000. Today is a little red, like there is like you can't even call it a correction because numbers dropped for like 1 or 2%, so it's still all good. But it's obviously a pretty big week if you look at the information being dropped this week. Obviously, we have Powell speaking in 2 days. This is probably the most anticipated event this week. Will we have rate cuts? I think I just read today that the probability increased to 100%. I'm not sure if that's even possible, but I mean, based on the tweet I read. And then the question remains, will we see more rate cuts this year? And this is actually, or probably what people are waiting for before we see a heavier reaction in the markets. Right now, it's just sideways movements. What do you see coming this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think a rate cut's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point, given the state of the markets. I mean, the housing market's been struggling, and that's generally where most people tend to store the vast majority of their wealth. And so it's not good for home prices to go backward, and they have been, on average, sneaking backward a little bit over the last few months. It hasn't been a significant drop, like in terms of what we might see in the crypto world, but it's been enough to cause people to worry. So I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point. My surprise would be if they don't at least initiate a small drop in rates. So that's what I'm planning for. That's what I'm going to see. Of course, that'll be asset inflation. That'll send gold and silver. That'll send home prices. That'll send Bitcoin higher. And, I don't think we're going to get a pullback in the markets, at least as far as the crypto markets are concerned, in 2025 if that happens, because everything will be pretty much set to go for another 6 weeks. And then if there's another drop at that meeting, it could push it into the first quarter of next year. So it might be the first quarter of next year before we see any form of like pullback in the markets. So that's kind of what I'm planning for at this point.
Yeah, I get that. I mainly agree. I mean, I don't really get why people, just look at the history and forget like the fundamentals, the news right now. Obviously, people know that rate cuts are most likely priced in, but there is like zero reason to think that Bitcoin might drop, like might have a 20% drop or some whatever right now. I think indicators show that the bull run is still ongoing. I'm not sure like what's like the exact target for this bull run. Some people say 150, some say 180, some are even moonballing a little more. But like I said, I don't think that 123 or 24, whatever we had, is going to be the all-time high for very long. And yeah, as you said, we'll have to see. Rate cuts are very, very likely. And yeah, do you think that, because you mentioned other assets as well, do you think that Bitcoin right now, the way it is like the best investment still short term, or would you rather buy, I don't know, gold or other altcoins right now?
It's just going to depend on your risk appetite. I mean, Bitcoin, I think right now, if you want to see something happen fast, is probably the best way to go, because not only is it fast, it's liquid. So, unlike real estate, it's not as difficult to get out of it, right? So, I mean, if you want to get out of a property, just ask me how long it takes, right? Like, it might take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. You don't know. So, if you can't borrow money easily, which it's been tough to borrow money over the last little bit, depending on, your financial situation and, interest rates. I mean, Bitcoin is the place to be in terms of property. Gold and silver would probably be my second next best bet, because with gold and silver, you can take physical possession of it and you can walk into any coin shop and sell it, and they'll give you cash for it. And so you don't have to, go through the third parties. You don't have to have transactions recorded. It's just a transaction between you and a coin dealer. And if it's a cash transaction, it's not really trackable. So it provides you some privacy there as well. So, I mean, that would be my second option. And of course, if you are following markets, you might want to take a look at stocks. I'm not in the stock market really much at all anymore. For me, it's crypto, precious metals, and real estate. That's kind of where I live. But there are some good dividend-paying stocks if you want like a slow move. But again, the stock market's heavily correlated to what the Federal Reserve does and the broader market does. So if you see pullbacks in the broader market, especially in the housing market, that's going to also impact the stock market. So I would probably stay in crypto for the most part. Start converting and maybe a little bit to USDC, which I did. I started converting a little bit of my holdings to USDC yesterday, just to sort of lock in some of these gains. We'll see what happens from there. I mean, you're never going to go broke taking profits, but you never know which way the market's going to go. So it's always smart to take a little bit of money off the table when you have like a massive run up, like we saw in Solana, ran up to like 240 this past week, which is close to a new all-time high. But I would not sit on anything for very long unless I was extremely confident that, I didn't need the cash, didn't want the cash, didn't have any other place to deploy the cash. And, I would basically want to be able to be as mobile with my funds as humanly possible. So for me, that's kind of the strategy that I'm playing at the moment.
Yeah, that perfectly makes sense. When I read, posts from people who still think that Bitcoin is going to see a big sell-off this month, what they say is that big holders with 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin have sold, let's see how much, 13 billion of Bitcoin in the last 30 days, which is like the largest whale sell-off since July 22. And yeah, they dumped about 116,000 Bitcoin. Inflows are like the Bitcoin spot ETF inflows have slowed as well. Who do you think is holding up the price? Is it retail? Is it like the private people we've always been telling like we are waiting for retail. When is retail coming in again? And who's responsible for the price to stay there?
I don't think retail is a factor right now for the price of Bitcoin, at least not a significant factor, because we have too many companies and businesses starting to custody Bitcoin as a treasury asset. So I think the last time I saw Saylor speak, he spoke about 180 companies that he knew of that were custodying Bitcoin as a treasury asset. And right now, with the block reward being what it is, there's about 450 new Bitcoin produced daily, and the entire supply is being bought up. So it never goes to market. And some of these, transactions you may or may not see depending on where the transactions take place. But if there's only 450 Bitcoin and they're all bought up every single day, then that's what's keeping your price where it's at. So if you're an institution and you see the writing on the wall, like you think like Kathy Wood, or you think like Michael Saylor, or you think like 5 or 10 other analysts that I could look up or name, you think Bitcoin's going to 500 or a million in the next, 3 to 5 years, or in the next 20 years, 13 million, as Saylor has predicted, based on flows and supplies. Like, if you're one of these people who buy that story, then every time Bitcoin pulls back a little, you almost have to buy it, because you start to realize that this is about as cheap as it's going to get. And so if you buy it 100,000, is it really going to benefit you 3 years from now to have waited or run the risk that it's going to drop to 75 or 80 or whatever the case may be? It's not really worth the risk, especially if you're institutional money. You want to get in, and you want to get in as cheaply as possible, especially if there's the potential for another double, which could happen. I mean, I think we're going to see at least 150,000, maybe, like a run up toward 200,000 before the end of the year, before we get a pullback. And, do you want to be the institution that watched that happen, or do you want to be the institution that bought at 100,000, off the supply of 450 tokens per day? So, I mean, you can always sell later, but you can never buy earlier. So at the end of the day, if you think the supply is kind of where it's going to be in this little banded region, and then, if you kind of think that the, 4-year cycle is broken, then you're probably going to buy, because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to wait at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just get the breaking news that gold reaches a new all-time high of almost $30,700. Like, I just want to know, how volatile is gold anyway? Like, it doesn't move that much, right? Or did it have a tremendous run this year?
It's been, here's the thing about gold and silver. People like Peter Schiff, people like me who own gold and silver, we bought into the story back in like 2005 or 6 that gold and silver was going to the moon, because the feds decided, after basically the crashes of 2000, the crashes of 9/11, the crashes of 07, 08, 09, depending on what time frame you're looking at, all of these various market crashes and cycles basically have generated increasing amounts of, currency creation and low interest rates. So we entered this era where money has been produced and created out of thin air now for ages. And so back at that time frame, when people started seeing this, the story was gold and silver is going to the moon. And, so people always think, well, it's happening on a short time frame. Like, I thought it was going to happen on a short time frame. So I bought my gold and my silver, and it's been sitting in a safe now for, 20 years or whatever it's been since I started buying. And in that time frame, I started buying silver when it was like, I don't know, $9 or $10 an ounce. And today it is, let's see, what is it? It's at 42.86, it looks like. So it's only gone up, I say only, it's only gone up 300% basically, in that time frame. So in 20 years, it's basically quadrupled, if you want to, depending on how you do the math, right? And same thing with gold. I started buying gold around 800, 900, 1,000, and today it's at 3,700. So again, it's almost the same rate. And the big speculation was that gold was going to constantly be reevaluated and do an accounting of all the dollars, and then of course the gold price would run up to like $10,000 an ounce, and of course that hasn't happened. So again, these things happen way slower with traditional assets than you could possibly imagine, barring some sort of acute catastrophe, because what has to happen is people have to lose faith in the belief system that the dollar is safe. And I think everyone underestimated how long it would take for people to stop believing that the dollar is safe. And so that's why you see this stability in the gold and silver market.
Do you think people will ever have the same trust in Bitcoin as they have in gold and silver?
Yes. I think newer generations, younger people, I'm Gen X, like millennials, Homelanders, all the generations that have come since, all of them are basically born into a digital world. And so, I mean, they're not going to want to hold on to precious metals per se when everything that they've been exposed to is digital. Everything they've been exposed to is sort of this ethereal stuff that doesn't really exist. From, like '07 when the iPhone was released or what have you, and then '08, '09, '10 when, music was added and iTunes came into being, and that started becoming a huge thing, right? Like, nobody buys records or CDs or, any form of physical media. Like, all of these things are being dematerialized, and money is no different. And in fact, the banks have been dematerializing money for years. They just use debit cards or credit cards. It's all the same shit. Like, you're just dematerializing money. It's just it's a digital entry on a screen somewhere, but it doesn't actually exist. If you added up all the money in the system and tried to account for it with physical dollars, you would never have as many physical dollars as there are actual accounts holding dollars. The math doesn't work. So it's the same thing. Like, money has been being dematerialized forever. Bitcoin's an extension of that, just like music was, the iTunes store was for music, just like email has been for, traditional mail. Everything is getting dematerialized, and that's where the big opportunity is.
Yeah, that's true. And well, I mean, it's like, especially when it comes to gold and silver, as you said, I believe that older generations have a complete different connection to it compared, because I don't know anyone from, let's say, maybe millennials, but Gen Z, I don't think they'd ever hold gold and silver. I think they do understand Bitcoin and, all these blockchain technology a lot better. But I see that older generations kind of, or some of them at least, kind of avoid, getting in touch with that whole topic of blockchain and all that. You mentioned in the very beginning that we will have a mint on Friday, and let's jump a little bit into NFTs, because obviously crypto is waiting for the news we will have this week. We will waiting for the Powell speech, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'm very very excited for the result and how the market reacts, but for now, let's see what we will have on Friday. So, as we said, usually we had planned the mint on Sunday, as it's like the 21st, Qatarese mint. We can right now drop a little alpha here, because she just announced the title of the piece, which is going to be called, let's see, I think I just read it. The piece is called Red Eye of the Pond. And you guys can think about what that could mean. As we said, the piece is going to drop on Friday 19 during Spaces, and there might be one or two, I'm not sure, surprises coming with it. Jason, do you want to spoil anything?
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna have a little fun with it. We've got Qatarese piece coming, which is really cool, very cool. I'm really looking forward to getting that into the world. But we're gonna accompany it with maybe a couple other special little items. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Come ready to rock and ready to pick up some awesome pieces. There might be more than one mint. Hint, hint.
Absolutely. So watch out, stay tuned, and we will, on top of that, let's not give away too much. So we will have the mint on Friday. There should be an announcement by now when you listen to the podcast in the Discord. So check that out. And we have another thing to announce, because we have seen that in the Discord there are many people who want to get pieces from the distribution wallet. And as a matter of fact, these pieces actually belong to someone. So these have been acquired already, but not claimed yet. So what we are going to do, because obviously we want to give people the possibility to collect the number they want. So we will open up that distribution wallet and give you guys the opportunity to get the numbers you want. We will give people who have not claimed their core pieces yet time until Friday. And if they haven't shown up, if they haven't claimed their pieces, we will open up the distribution wallet. And in case you want a piece, if you want a certain number from that wallet, you can just swap in another piece of it. What about the 21s? Like, are there 21s? I think there are 21s in the distribution wallet, right? Can that just be swapped out for another piece?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of everything in there. So, yeah, anything that we can swap out, we'll swap out, of course, and then we'll figure it out as we go. But all of the active collectors should have everything that they want. You guys should be obviously taken care of. And if anyone misses anything in the future and they come back, we'll be able to give them a piece in lieu of the one that went out. So, like, we'll swap whatever we can swap and go from there. Shouldn't be a big deal, especially for people. I don't think it's a lot of wallets. I think we had a couple wallets that held a lot of pieces. And those pieces obviously I'll get with those people and dig those pieces out and go ahead and start emptying those wallets. But anything that's left over outside of that, we'll just go ahead and start distro and, get you guys taken care of because I don't want everybody waiting forever. And to be honest with you, we should have put a time limit on it to begin with. We just didn't because we didn't feel like it would be necessary. But obviously, we were wrong. It is necessary to put a time limit on it. We'll do that in the future.
Absolutely. So, if you guys got some time after Spaces on Friday, you can reach out. We will have another announcement about that, of course, as well. And tell you guys what to do. But be sure you will get the number you want if the piece is currently in the distribution wallet. What else do we got? We got the Solana phone delivered. Maybe you guys have seen that.
At no point
that the phones were delivered to people, and of course we are not forgetting the promise we made back then. We ordered a phone and it arrived. Jason, I think you bought yourself a phone as well, right?
Yeah, I bought two. I bought one for me and one for the community.
So you're planning to actually use it, or is it like just for the airdrops?
No, I just got it so I could see what it was all about. I'm not going to switch service from my existing phone, at least not right now. But I'm going to play with this. I want to play with the Seeker because it's supposed to have built-in security features, and I want to learn a little bit more about it. I know Solana has created, this is one of the big things that they were working on. And this is obviously a partnership with Google because it does have the Android OS and it ships with basically all the Google apps. But it also ships with some Solana apps. There's a wallet app and there's a DApp store. And so I think Solana is kind of turning into like the Apple of, like Web3 in that they're trying to unify a lot of the services that people would, necessarily have to go to different places to get under one umbrella. And if that's the case and it's a secure phone and it can operate as a wallet and all these other things, then, I want to obviously learn about that and see how it all factors in and comes together. But I've barely had a chance to play with it yet. I've just noticed the difference between the native apps and the Solana apps. But from what I can tell, it's a pretty slick phone. It's fast. The screen's very responsive. It has a smaller profile than my Android phone. And it's a nice looking phone. I mean, it looks, like every other phone. It's just a black screen. But for the most part, I'd say it has the shape of like an iPhone. It has those, big rounded edges, triple camera, and then of course apps installed just like everything else. So it's pretty normal as far as what you'd be accustomed to. And diving into the security features and the Web3 features is really what I'm curious about. So that's really the main difference. So I want to see what the security's like, play with some of the apps that they've advertised, and just see how everything's being brought together. Because I think, we've talked a lot about UI, and this might be I think really this is a first step at kind of getting to this place where, we have a smoother UI. Because I think people using these phones and installing these apps are going to have the opportunity to worry less about private keys and this and that and the other thing, and just be able to focus on using the technology, which is, what we want people to be able to do. So should be interesting.
By the way, have you ever tried an iPhone?
We had when we owned the gym, we used iPhones to run music and stuff like that. Like my friends had old iPhones, and so they just brought them in and donated them, and they weren't active on a mobile network, but we just basically ran music off of them. So I've played with them and used them and taken photos with them and all that kind of thing, as well as iPads. We used iPads for check-ins and that sort of thing, and we just did that because that was like old technology they had laying around the house that we didn't have to purchase for the gym, so we just repurposed it there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I just wondered because, in my environment, I'm like the outsider for not having an iPhone. So I was actually thinking that especially American people would majorly, have iPhones.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, I think for the longest time, everyone that had a smartphone had an iPhone, and it was the big thing. And people would line up for the next iPhone. And I think now people have kind of figured out that Apple really hasn't done anything innovative with the iPhone for 10 years or longer. Basically, since Steve Jobs passed away, there hasn't really been any major innovation. They've made it a little bit smaller or a little bit thinner here and there, but they haven't really made any huge steps forward with the phone. Meanwhile, Samsung has really stepped up their game, and they've basically taken over a tremendous chunk of the Apple market because people got tired of that. So, a lot of the people who want the newest and latest tech are getting more and more Android phones. So, there's the argument about security, who's secure, who isn't. Then there's the argument about interop. Apple has a terrible reputation for interop. So developers are getting sick of that. Even Facebook, like Mark Zuckerberg talked about this on the Joe Rogan podcast he was on, where like he wanted to do stuff with Apple, but they wouldn't allow him to actually integrate with their phones the way that he wanted them to. So then that created another problem. And, so like as long as Apple is sort of acting as, an empire unto itself and gatekeeping their technology, they're going to continue to lose market share if they're not very careful, because the truth is the innovation is, has slowed drastically.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, it always felt like, Apple built their little universe. So if you had an iPhone, if you had an iPad, it felt necessary. If you had iTunes, it felt necessary to have all the devices, and in order to have the best advantages. So yeah, I'm not sure. Like they did a pretty good job of building the brand, but I think everyone is aware that the hardware has never been as good as from competitors. So yeah, I've never been a big fan because just look, if you look at their Play Store or what App Store or however it's called, you can see that it's very, let's say, very controlled and like a lot of limitations. And I always felt like Android. I think the only issue with Android is that there are too many bad phones out there having the Android software on it. So that is why some people might think that it's inferior to iOS. But yeah, the truth is, I think if you got used to having an iPhone, because it definitely feels different using it, the UI and everything. I think once you go iPhone, you'll probably do you know any people who switched from iPhone to an Android?
Yeah, there've been a few, and
really,
it's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, I used to make fun of Apple users all the time. I would tell them that I was never going to join their cult, just because like when you'd say, "Hey, well, why do you like the iPhone?" and they'd be like, it's kind of like, why do you prefer this political person over that particular political person? No one can give you an answer. So I'm like, okay, well, what does that phone do that this phone doesn't do? Nothing, right? And so it's like, well, I like Apple because of the form factor. Okay, cool, I get it. Like if you're looking for a stylish phone or you're looking for something that integrates with all the other Apple products, cool, that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's why I use the PC platform or the Android platform, because it integrates with all my other Google stuff. Like it unites everything. So I think it's the sunk cost, right? Like once you've bought the Apple computer and you've paid twice as much for the Apple computer that does the same thing as the PC for half the price, you're not going to go back because you were sold on the fact that you've got better graphics and you got this and you got that. And this is the computer that they use to, edit photos and videos. So you have to have the Apple. And the truth is, like, the difference between the systems is very, very minimal, and like it's not even worth arguing about. So I have seen people switch. I have seen people go both ways, switch from Android to Apple and from Apple to Android, but it's always generally on the back of like a really bad experience. Apple did this to me, or so and such a company did this to me, and so I'm never going to use them again, kind of a thing. For me, I just look at the tech. It's like, okay, well, what does this computer do that one won't do? Nothing? Okay, well, why would I pay twice for that one? Doesn't make any sense. How many programs are available for this computer versus how many programs are available for the Apple? There's 100 times more programs available for the PC. So why would I buy the Apple again? And why would it be twice as much? I'm sorry, I'm not following you. And so like all the arguments fall apart. There was a time in space where like if you wanted to do high-end graphics, you had to have an Apple, because the Linux-based operating systems would basically run these graphics programs much, much smoother. But that hasn't been the case for the last decade. So, run what you like, run what you brung. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you like what you got, I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, a free choice for everyone, and as you said, if you look at what either phone offers, I think the decision is easy. But obviously, if your favorite celebrity or all your friends got an iPhone, you need to get one as well, of course. As I said, free choice for everyone. What else do we have? We actually want to introduce a new set of achievements, you guys, for you guys. We are not going too much into detail on that because we haven't finalized that yet, but there will be information, I think, next week. So if you have the most like-numbered pieces, most one-of-ones, and all that stuff, it's definitely going to get you a benefit in the future, because we, of course, want to reward all that. And I think this should be it for today. Did we forget anything?
I don't think so. Did you forget anything?
I didn't.
All right. Good deal. Yeah, no, I mean, if you don't have anything else, I don't have anything else. We can jump into the week. Obviously, I have a lot of work to get done. I've got to get quite a bit of prep work and coding done for the Mints. And obviously, lots of promo work needs to get done on your end. So we should probably get after it, homie.
All right, man. So we appreciate everyone who listened again. Stay tuned. Take a look at the Discord. There will be announcements this week. And we look forward to see you guys on Friday again when we have the Mint. The piece is going to be great. Looking forward. Have a great week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care, guys.